Welcome to Sports from the Couch.
I gotta say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
With your host, Mike Mercado.
Players cannot stand him. Coaches cannot stand him. Most importantly, the fans can't stand him.
Brought to you by Mercado Airwaves.
I'm gonna say it once, and hopefully I'm wrong, but it's a disaster waiting to happen.
That is so bad, that is absolutely brutal.
Hello and welcome in, friends, to another edition of Sports from the Couch here on Mercado Airwaves. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. I want to thank you so much for making us a part of your day. And on today's edition of Sports from the Couch, we have ourselves the confirmation of who will be the starting quarterback for your Chicago Bears Week 1 of the NFL season in Los Angeles. But before we get to all that, we got to take care of some housekeeping notes. You can follow me all over the universe. I'm on Twitter at MikeMedia, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media, and you can be interactive with the show on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. Like, rate, review, and shares wherever you get your favorite podcasts. We're on all major podcast platforms at Mercado Airwaves. Check out the video version of the podcast over at youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. Make sure you guys hit that little bell and hit the subscribe button to be notified every single time we upload a brand new episode. We're also on Roku. Shout out to Jerry Riles and the Rewind Sports 60. Hello, friends over at Roku. Check us out over there. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Become a producer of the network of Sports from the Couch over at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. We have a bunch of really cool tiers for you to be interactive with the show and show your support and love. Speaking of support and love, check us out over at teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves. Check out some of the swag we have over there. We're on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. And please do us a huge favor. Speaking of Mercado Airwaves, follow us on Twitter so you can be up to date every single time we upload a brand new episode of Murder, Mysteries, and More, The Gone Missing Podcast, The Good Brothers, The Two Nerds of a Feather Podcast, Sports from the Couch, and every single time we upload a brand new interview with athletes or celebrities. That's on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves. So on this edition of Sports from the Couch, we know what's going to happen against the Rams, barring any injuries, barring anything crazy happening against the Titans in the third preseason game. So I wanted to kind of see what the vibes were coming out of Halas Hall. The coach of the Bears, Matt Nagy, had himself a press conference. We've had some practices since that horrible game against the Buffalo Bills. So I went and I wanted to see what the vibes were. And we're going to start off with two different excerpts, right? The first half of the show and the second half. On the first half, this comes to us from Colleen Kane over at the Chicago Tribune. This was posted on August 24th, 2021. The article is, Justin Fields' next opportunity is unclear after he starts the preseason finale. But the Chicago Bears rookie QB says he trusts Matt Nagy's development plan. So let's get right into what Colleen had to say. Chicago Bears rookie quarterback Justin Fields will start the third and final preseason game against the Tennessee Titans on Saturday in Nashville. After that, Andy Dalton's performance could largely determine when Bears fans next see Fields in a game. Before practice at Halas Hall on Tuesday, Bears coach Matt Nagy reiterated his plan to start the veteran Dalton in the season opener, September 12th, against the Los Angeles Rams in Inglewood, California on Sunday Night Football. But he strayed from his typical training camp message about playing Fields when the first round pick is ready, and he acknowledged that Dalton's play will help determine when Fields makes his debut. Quote, big picture, when we talked about this from the very start, we said whoever is going to be best for the Chicago Bears, and that's going to be obviously deal with production and wins, right? Nagy said. So, when you look at this thing, you want to make sure we all support each other with one common goal, to win, and offensively, to score touchdown. Quote, and Andy knows that. Andy is well aware of that. Andy is excited for the opportunity to show that he can do with these starters and in this offense. And then, every day, we have to evaluate, and we have to see where we're at every single day. End quote. So let's pause right there. Let's talk about some other things. And the big thing that I took from this, right, is we have to see, he says it right here, big picture. When we talked about this from the very start, we said whoever is going to be best for the Chicago Bears, and that's going to obviously deal with production and wins, right? When you look at Andy Dalton, and you saying that it has to be what's best for this Bears team, and you're obviously speaking from both ends of your mouth. Because how are you going to say that your jobs are on the line, that everything matters, if in the regular season you're using it for evaluation? The regular season matters. Right? How crazy concept. But if you're listening to these quotes, he's telling you he needs real football games that matter as an evaluation. This is crazy that people that are supposed to have their jobs on their line are using this as a catalyst, as a building block. As if they have the time to develop this man. As if Andy Dalton is some secret. Let's continue on with this. Dalton played 2 series in the preseason opener versus the Miami Dolphins and the entire first half against the Buffalo Bills in the second game, playing mostly without starters such as Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney, and David Montgomery. Dalton didn't have a ton of success moving the offense, but he did throw a 73-yard touchdown pass to Rodney Adams. He completed 13 of 21 passes for 164 yards, a touchdown, and an interception in those games. But you saw, don't let any stats, don't let any highlight fool what your eyes saw that day. And in these 2 games, the offense was stagnant. It was 3 and outs. There was no chemistry. Yeah, the starters weren't there. What makes you think that's going to be different? How is it possible that we're going to judge Justin Fields and any of these other young quarterbacks, any of these players, based off of when they played, how they played, and then do the same thing to give Andy Dalton the benefit of the doubt? Dalton, the benefit of Dalton, the benefit of doubt? Oh, he didn't have the normal offensive starters. His line sucked. He doesn't have his receivers. So obviously he's going to be better. Why can't we turn around the same arguments? Like, yeah, he's playing against the 2s and the 3s, but he's doing really well. And if he had the same starters that Andy Dalton will have, maybe he would do better off. That's what's frustrating about this, because bottom line, what have the last 10 years of film been on Andy Dalton? How much more do you have to see on Andy Dalton? This would not be an issue if the Bears didn't trade up to get Justin Fields. This is the same old mistake that Ryan Pace has been doing year after year after year. Overplaying, overpaying, and outbidding himself for somebody that nobody else in the league was hankering to get. Now, is it a luxury to have pros like Andy Dalton, Nick Foles to help with a Justin Fields? Sure. Of course it is. But only if it's to benefit Justin Fields, not to be loyal or for some weird financial reason that you have to play Andy Dalton. Again, if you were a team that was lingering, if you were the Detroit Lions, you don't necessarily have a young quarterback coming up. You don't know what you're going to do moving forward. You just need to figure out some other things. You need to get a bridge to the next guy. Andy Dalton's perfect. Or if you're the Dallas Cowboys and you lose your superstar, Andy Dalton's perfect. He's not perfect for this. And he's not perfect when your eyes are telling you exactly what you're seeing. You see that the offense just looks better. You just see that Justin Fields looks better out on the field than Andy Dalton does. And this isn't some weird hate towards Dalton. I like Dalton. I've always been one of the guys that says he's a little underrated because he played against the Baltimore defense at Big Ben, right? So he wasn't the star. Tom Brady is in that conference. Like, there's plenty of reasons. But if you were a certain team, right, if there was a Bears team that had a good defense, or the year that Jay Cutler got hurt in 2010, like, yeah, you would have loved a quarterback like Andy Dalton. Not when you have Justin Fields. I saw something on Twitter, and this is a quote from Matt Nagy. This offense takes 3 to 4 years to really get going. And now we're getting into years 2, 3, and 4 with some of these guys. Excuse me? It kind of puts into perspective a little bit. And our beliefs, how we're talking about, how are they going this route? Why isn't there no urgency between Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy? It's probably because they have job security. Complete job security. Now, when you're talking about that, and you do get the frustration coming out from me of how they're handling this, and I could be wrong, and I will eat crow if I'm wrong, and this is the right way to do it, and he goes on and wins 3 MVPs, a Super Bowl, all that, fine. More than willing to leave that open for a possibility because it totally can happen. There is something to continuity. You don't want your young quarterback to constantly have different people in the front office, different coaches. I agree. I don't just think you should just be firing these dudes. But at what point are we going to put Matt Nagy in the same type of scrutiny that we do with Ryan Pace? Ryan Pace gets a lot of hate, rightfully so. He's made a lot of dumb decisions. But how many times does Matt Nagy need a new offensive coordinator, needs somebody to call the plays, needs another quarterback, needs some time? It's great coaches have their standard way of doing things, have a way to build a culture, maybe an identity, right? First of all, what have the Bears' identity ever been? There's never been an identity for this team. That's one of the most frustrating things is the Bears have never had this, you know that they're going to blow the roof out of this place. They're going to put up 50 points, or they're going to play stout defense, or they're going to run the ball. It's always this hodgepodge of different things. But Matt Nagy saying and being stubborn, my way or the highway, it's my offense. This is what I want to do. This is what I think we should do. Great coaches cater their offense to their players so they have the most success. Put their guys in positions to succeed. Not try to put a square peg in a round hole. So that was just some thoughts I had from that little excerpt from Colin Kane. You should check out the entire article over at the Tribune. Speaking of the Tribune, the day before that, this is from Dan Wiederer. I wanted to talk a little bit about this. 4 things we learned at Chicago Bears practice, including the defense's response after an ugly effort and the rate of Justin Fields' development. So this is just one part of it. I suggest you guys check the entire thing over at the Chicago Tribune. This is the second point of it. Matt Nagy continues to be impressed with the rate of Justin Fields' development. After Sunday's game, Nagy emphasized that he sees growth from his rookie quarterback, and who has played 71 snaps in 2 preseason games. Fields continues to appear poised and confident, even with some youthful mistakes mixed in. Nagy was pressed for specifics Monday on where Fields has surpassed the coaching staff's expectations, and he noted that Fields has shown command of the intricacies of play calling within the huddle. Beyond that, Nagy admires Fields' ability to read the defense after the snap. And before we get to his quote, that's the one thing, if you're locally here in Chicago and you just read these excerpts, read these interviews, listen to these interviews and these press conferences, they're all giddy about it. They're all excited about it. They all want him to play. I don't know what the fear is. I don't know where the miscommunication is. I don't know where the stubbornness is. There's always going to be the argument that you could tell me about somebody sitting like a Patrick Mahomes and coming up after Alex Smith, or somebody starting like Peyton Manning. If your thought process is it doesn't matter, the Bears aren't going to win the Super Bowl, and if your thought process is Ryan Pace isn't that great of a scout to begin with, and he's made the same mistake over and over again, then there isn't a perfect time. You got to start making your moves now. And I'm fascinated every time you hear Matt Nagy, how excited he seems to want to play him, but how quick he is to be loyal to Andy Dalton. Let's get to this quote. His post-snap progressions with how quick he sees the defense is a huge strength for his, Nagy said. And then, too, what we're starting to see is if he's back there and a play is not open, he catches that edge. That scares defensive coordinators because now he could get a 20-yard gain, and he has a good feel for when to run and when not to run and when to protect himself. It almost seems like that would really help a bad offensive line, huh? It really seems like the guy with very, very good speed, pocket presence, feel of the pressure coming towards him, knows how to make the step up, step to the left, step to the right, whatever the case may be. I don't know. The guy who can move, who could run. Maybe it would be interesting if you're so worried about games and you need to see progression, but you also see that. Fascinating, though, that you're picking the statue known as Andy Dalton. Fields has run 8 times for 83 yards, with 4 of those scrambles producing first downs and 1 turning into an 8-yard touchdown against the Miami Dolphins. His longest run against the Bills was a 16-yard escape on 4th and 3. Quote, he's done that his whole career, Nagy said. Quote, he has played quarterback but used his legs when he's had to. That part I like. And that is a fair worry or criticism that you have to have towards any type of player, any type of rookie prospect like a Justin Fields. You don't want him to rely on his legs. You want him to be a quarterback. You want him to be able to be smart enough and elusive enough to not have to run for his life and put that on his entire shoulders, that he can make a play with his arm, that he can stay healthy. But this is where, if he's going to be great, then he'll do it like Russell Wilson. Then he'll do it like Patrick Mahomes. Then he'll do it like Deshaun Watson. That's the whole thing. You could protect him as much as you want. You can delay this as much as you want. You can overthink this as much as you want. Greatness is greatness. And if he's great, and if he's to this tier, he's going to hide a lot of these weaknesses because he's great. And that's what great players do. So I think overthinking it is going to be a hard thing. But again, listen to the way Matt Nagy's speaking. The giddiness. It's so weird. Nagy still plans for veteran Andy Dalton to start in Week 1 against the Los Angeles Rams. But Fields can influence the coaching staff's long-term timeline with his continued progress. Nagy said his staff would meet Monday evening to put together playing time plans for Saturday's preseason finale. Quote, offensively as a whole, we just want to have a little bit more success in regards to getting first downs and staying away from penalties. Nagy said, and then whoever's out there, it's about being able to just play fast and really tie up this training camp as we head into the season. So it does look like Justin Fields will play the first 2 quarters, and then Nick Foles will finish up the game. If you're looking, so before we get into just the craziness of Week 1, why he might be doing that, if you're looking for Justin Fields, you want to see him be comfortable, you want to see him avoid any mistakes, stay healthy, how he controls the line, how he controls the huddle, how he's calling plays, if he's doing audibles, things like that. That's the most important thing, because you know physically the attributes you're going to get from him, and they're going to see mistakes. He's a rookie. That all comes with the territory. But we do know that if that's the case and Andy Dalton's not playing, that means he hadn't really played with the starters to begin with. So now you're using, as we said in the beginning of the show, you're using regular season games to evaluate a 30-something-year-old quarterback that's on a 1-year deal. If you want to make the argument, and we've done this argument for show on show for weeks and weeks and weeks, that you just don't want him on that game on Sunday Night Football against Aaron Donald and that defense, fine. What's the difference 2 weeks later against the Cleveland Browns and Myles Garrett, a team that also has Super Bowl aspirations? There's great players on every team. This is the National Football League. It's never going to be easy. It's up to the coaching staff and the front office to put these guys in the best position to win. Have they done that? You know, again, it's a preseason game. You can only put so much emphasis on it. But Mitch looked better out there. Mitch looked comfortable out there. Because they were running an offense, simple as it was, good or bad, depending on how you feel about Mitch, that catered to him. This guru, this quarterback guru that everybody's talking about, that everybody loves, that everybody hailed, the guy that's Andy Reid's disciple, couldn't get anything from Mitch Trubisky. Nick Foles that he wanted. Andy Dalton that they paid money for, we'll see. Hasn't looked that good in this offseason. It's a lot of suspect going on. A lot of overthinking. I could be wrong. I know that's not fun to say if you're in this hot take era. I can 100% be wrong. But I do know what my eyes show me, who looks better, who the players speak highly of, who they get excited speaking of, who the coaches get excited speaking of. It is on the coaching staff and that front office to put these guys in the best position. Draft offensive linemen, not offensive linemen. No hate to Tevin Jenkins, and still might work out, but that have back surgery before they put on pads. How about you evaluate correctly? How about you stop getting rid of all your assets and missing on it? You can, if Justin Fields work out, fine. But every other time, and your money management is why your secondary is suspect. It's like it comes down to Justin Fields being great, that's on him. That's going to happen or it's not. But if your complaint is we're worried about him going against Aaron Donald because our line isn't good enough, that's not on Justin Fields. That's on you and your scouting and your money management. Shout out to Dan Reeder. Check it out. This was on the Chicago Tribune. 4 things we learned at Chicago Bears practice, including the defense's response after an ugly effort and the rate of Justin Fields' development. And Colleen Kane, Justin Fields' next opportunity is unclear after he starts the preseason finale, but the Chicago Bears rookie QB says he trusts Matt Nagy's development plan. And as we've seen, Affetti is practicing, Peters is practicing, so their offensive line is coming together for all that's worth. But it's going to be something we speak about all season. And it's also going to be something that we have to look at when it comes to guys they lost on defense and how they lost them because of the front office and, once again, Ryan Pace having really bad money management. So let me know your thoughts, though. What do you guys feel about this, knowing now that Justin Fields is going to play most of the first half, if not the entire first half of this final preseason game against the Titans? With that meeting, Andy Dalton will be your starting quarterback for week 1 against the LA Rams. That'll do it for us, though. Let me know your thoughts. We're all over the universe. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media, and you can be interactive with the show on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. Like, rate, review, and share us on all major podcast platforms, wherever you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. We're on youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. If you'd like to see the video version of the podcast, hit that little bell and subscribe to us to be notified every single time we upload a brand new episode. Shout out to Jerry Riles and the Rewind Sports 60, our partners over at ROKU. Check us out over at the Rewind Sports 60. Support us over at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves, teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves to check out some of our swag. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/Mercado Airwaves, and you can keep up to date with every one of our podcasts every single time we upload a brand new episode by following us on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves. If you're a fan of the Good Brothers, the Gone Missing podcast, the Murder Mysteries and More podcast, the Two Nerds of a Feather podcast, and of course, Sports from the Couch. Enjoy all the games. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. We will see you next time here on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm Mike Mercado.